How's it going, boys? Danny here, back with another new world video. This one is specifically about PvP and PvP missions. I'm filming this around a few days after the launch of the mutations, and this isn't a kind of backlash from, oh, it's a PvE patch. It's more of a, we've kind of been discussing about how we feel things could be improved without changing too much in the game. And before you turn this off and think, fucking hell, here's another YouTuber wannabe dev, thinks he knows it all, bear with me. I've been speaking a lot about this. We've got quite a bit of time in the game, and I'm not going to come out here with some weird and wacky wild suggestions that will mean the developers will need to go and develop loads more to bring this to life. The current issues that we're facing, if there are no defenders while you are an attacker trying to put a territory into conflict, there is one quest that's completely redundant, leaving you with two quests. There is a second quest where forts are often locked, meaning, you know, you can't actually do that mission, meaning another quest is completely redundant. So there's a good chance you'll have two redundant quests while pushing a territory, while going on the offense. The other missions, the other PvP missions, feel very PvE orientated. You go to a place, you pick something up, you drop something off, you stand in a location, and then you run back to town. It's very, very non-combat related, and I know the idea is that you have to flag, so there's an opportunity that you'll be killed. The issue is, as a defender of the town, you are largely encouraged to do PvE. The way you reduce your influence, you know, obviously you can kill the enemy, get your 5 tokens and run back to town, but there's a timer on that, you know, there's a timer behind that. So you are ultimately largely encouraged to do PvE. You go and do the quest where you pick something up, you drop something off, you stand in a location, you go back to town. You know, it is very PvE orientated, and a lot of the times you'll find if a team is attacking a place and a team comes to defend the place, what happens is the attacking team will do their best to go around the defending team. They'll go to the place, they'll have a little fight, and then they'll move around to the other locations and avoid combat, because the best way to do the missions is the best way to throw something into conflict is to avoid combat. So the proposed changes and the idea that I have is ultimately very, very simple. So what we're looking to do really is, I'm Marauders right now. Let's say, for argument's sake, we want to throw Ebon Scale Reach into conflict here. What I would need to do, this is something that I could do by myself to get going. I would go to Ebon Scale Reach and I would claim that fort for myself, and that will start the influence bar pushing up for Marauders. Now for the defending company, now for purple in this instance, Syndicate, to defend this, what they would need to do is send a player or multiple players to come and capture the fort back. Obviously at this point they don't know how many of us are in there. In this scenario it's just me, so if one other player comes to cap it back, we could have a nice little 1v1. Let's say I lose, the Syndicate wins, I'm annoyed, I type into my clan chat, right, Syndicate have taken the fort back off me, is anyone around to come and PvP at Ebon Scale Fort? 5 people come along. Now we're a 5v1. Same happens for Syndicate, they then get more people. So we could have these nice small scale battles, but it could also go up to the large 25v25. The kind of equation is, if a faction controls the fort, that faction gains X amount of influence over X amount of time, and that is both for the attacking and the defending factions. So we'll go over a couple of questions that people have asked to me on stream and kind of said that this is a bad idea because. So the first one was, how do we know what company has gained what influence? Again, I don't know the ins and outs of the workings, but at the moment we have a system in place, a system in place where the more missions someone does, the more influence they gain, and if they get that 10%, they can then throw something into conflict. I'm hoping that there would be a system around, you know, how many of X particular company have been in the fort for X amount of time, which could then aid with that progression or something along those lines. Again, that's not a great solution, I know, but that would be the idea. You know, if for example 10 people from my company have gone and stood in the fort for 20 minutes, maybe that equates to the 10% influence bar. The second question was, you know, what if we can't beat them in the fort? Won't that promote some more midnight pushes and, you know, throwing places into conflict, you know, when the enemy's not there, you know, when the defending company's not there to actually defend. And I believe it's kind of like that now. When PvP was a lot more wild in the open world, you know, a couple of months ago or a month ago, if we came out to defend our town and we beat them, the attacking company would ultimately stop, and they'd have to come back at a time when we're not there. So, and it's the same for us. If we go to attack somewhere, and same with other people, if you go to attack something and the defending company comes out in force, there's nothing you can do. Well, there is. You do the PvP missions and you do your best to run around them and dodge them and get through them with your missions and avoid combat. So I feel it's similar to the system to where it is now. If you can't win the fort attack and you can't, you know, beat them, you'd have to do it in an off-peak time, or a time when the enemy's not there. But what I'm hoping that would do is encourage more PvP, encourage more people to get involved in the PvP in these particular areas, if you want to go into the wars which are, you know, PvP. And the last kind of question that got brought up that was kind of a serious one was obviously the player cap. At the moment, you can only have 25 players per faction in the fort at a particular time. I think that's good, especially in the way the game is currently. You know, too many people together creates issues among issues. So the fort cap scenario is a good one right now, and it will also be a place for us to, you know, train. 25 v 25 obviously is not 50 versus 50 in the war, but you can think of it as like a small scale fort attack. What happens if, you know, we bring 100 and the enemy bring 100? You know, ultimately you'll be able to stick 25 people in the fort, and then outside the fort there'll be more fights and more battles happening. So it could be a bit wild, just as if, you know, PvP at the moment in open world can get a bit crazy and a bit laggy. I think it could happen at the fort too. But what we're doing is we're kind of creating a place for people to kind of train in the forts and fight around the forts, and fight around actually capturing a point. You know, you don't really get a chance to train in wars and how many people you want to put on the point versus, you know, how many people to be off the point doing damage on the point, and tank stacking and healer stacking and all the sort of scenarios that you see in the wars. There's nowhere to really do that. So I think the fort cap is fine for now until the desync gets good and the lag gets good around large scale PvP. Again, it's not ideal, but it's a system there. It's a system that's there to protect large scale PvP. So it would be nice to see that actually being used. So to summarize and conclude the idea here and put it into one TLDR, I'll try to utilize the forts. The faction control points are a fantastic part of the game that are just not really used. You know, when the controlling faction owns that fort, the territory bar will go in their favor, whether it's defending or attacking. Once it gets to that point, you know, once it gets to the end, you throw in conflict again. You know, this will create that kind of push and pull element, you know, and driving people to these forts to really have control over the territories. And, you know, even if you're not involved in the wars, the actual wars themselves, you have a really good opportunity to be involved in some PvP outside of the wars and kind of make a difference from a PvP side. You know, at the moment, OPR is a bit of a letdown. General open world PvP doesn't really exist, you know, anymore. It used to be fantastic, but it doesn't really exist anymore. So, you know, what I want to do is bring these PvP missions and create some kind of meaningful conflict over throwing a territory, you know, into war and going to war over territories. So kind of a pre-war, for the war, and a place for us to train and practice and have some good fun. That's it. If you agree with me, or if you want to discuss this, I've created a post on the forums. I've put a link in the description below. Please come along, join in the conversation, and let's try and support some positive change for the PvP missions in New World. Let's try, boys.